You finally decide to buy that specific red sports car. You've never really noticed it on the road before, but on the drive home from the dealership, you spot three of them. By the end of the week, they seem to be idling at every intersection. It feels as if a glitch has appeared in the simulation. Many people look for deep meaning when this happens. They might point to the law of attraction, or perhaps Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity. Synchronicity is a psychological term for meaningful coincidences that seem perfectly timed, despite having no actual causal relationship. The scientific explanation for this experience is the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. This term honors a violent, left-wing militant group active in West Germany during the 1970s. The label emerged in 1994 when a reader of a Minnesota newspaper learned about the Baader-Meinhof gang for the first time. He saw their name in print again within 24 hours and shared the coincidence on an early internet message board. Psychologists now use a more clinical shorthand for this bias, the frequency illusion. It is also popularly known as red car syndrome. This cognitive mechanism actively distorts our reality, often making a sudden influx of information feel like a message from the universe. As we'll see, this internal filtering has consequences that reach far beyond car shopping, moving into the critical fields of science and medicine. Your senses are bombarded with millions of bits of information every second. To prevent overwhelm, your brain uses the reticular activating system, or RAS. Acting as a biological bouncer, the RAS evaluates every sensation, passing only relevant data to your conscious mind and discarding the rest. When you fixate on a specific object, you hand that bouncer a VIP pass, prioritizing that data to bypass the filters. This biological hardware works alongside a psychological process called selective attention. Selective attention functions like a spotlight, focusing your mind on the newly tagged item, while the rest of the world fades into the background. Finally, confirmation bias solidifies the pattern. Once you notice the item a few times, you subconsciously agree with yourself that it is appearing more frequently, ignoring every instance where it was absent. These forces work together to convince us a pattern exists where there is only randomness. While our brains are efficient, they remain completely unreliable narrators. This illusion builds institutional myths, particularly in high-stress environments. Many professionals in labor and delivery wards swear by them. They believe full moons cause a massive, chaotic spike in childbirths. It remains a deeply held belief among nurses and doctors worldwide. This chart shows actual birth rates tracked across shifting lunar cycles. Over decades of statistical data, the line remains flat. The numbers show zero correlation between the phases of the moon and delivery rates. Here is the frequency illusion at scale. Medical staff actively remember the chaotic shifts aligning with full moons, because those nights confirm the established myth. They easily forget the equally chaotic Tuesday nights that occur under a crescent moon. That data doesn't fit the narrative spotlight, so the AAS deletes it from the long-term memory. The frequency illusion is powerful enough to override empirical data, turning a cognitive bias into a trusted professional superstition. The stakes reach their peak when this phenomenon infects the scientific method. We saw this during the chaotic early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Doctors reported a global surge in patients with swollen toes. The media named it COVID toes, but the medical term for this inflammation is chilblains. Because the pandemic was the primary priority tag in the global consciousness, researchers assumed this was a new, direct symptom of the virus. This Venn diagram illustrates the reality revealed by studies. The proportion of actual COVID-infected patients suffering from these skin issues was incredibly low. Experiencing the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, clinicians artificially linked the virus to an unrelated seasonal condition, simply because they were hyper-focused on finding symptoms. When the frequency illusion bypasses our critical thinking, our survival filters manufacture false medical realities that can mislead global research. Our perception functions as a curated highlight reel, filtered through biological biases and recent encounters. We rarely see a live broadcast of the physical world. The reality we experience is highly edited, shaped by what our brain deems important to keep. This same mechanism explains trends like the law of attraction. The brain simply begins to notice opportunities it has been recently trained to seek. The frequency illusion is an essential survival feature.
Without this filtering, we would be paralyzed by constant sensory overload. However, ignoring this feature is dangerous. It traps us in echo chambers and leads us toward false conclusions about the world around us. We cannot turn off the brain's reality filter, but by recognizing the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, we can finally understand the distorted lens we are looking through.